What happens when a king is placed on trial by his own people? When the throne answers to something greater than itself. Today, we go back to January 1649 to witness one of the most extraordinary and world-shaping moments in British history. The trial of Charles I of England. Charles I ascended the throne of England, Scotland, and Ireland in 1625. Over his reign, he clashed repeatedly with Parliament over taxes, religion, the powers of the crown, and the very nature of governance. His belief in the divine right of kings meant that he saw himself as accountable principally to God, not Parliament or his people. Those tensions exploded in the English Civil War, or rather series of conflicts between royalists, loyal to Charles, and parliamentarians, demanding limits. By the war's end, the new model army and Parliament had defeated the king's forces. The question was now, what should be done with the monarch whose rule had been so severely challenged? This is not just another story of a defeated king. This is the first time in British and arguably European history that a reigning monarch was publicly tried and executed by his own subjects. That fact alone makes this episode enormously significant for Britain and for global ideas about power, accountability, and the rule of law. The parliamentarian army felt deeply betrayed by Charles's conduct. Secret negotiations, attempted alliances with the Scots, resumed warfare after truces. In December 1648, under the influence of the army, Parliament was purged, often called Pride's Purge, to leave only members willing to prosecute the king. Then, in January 1649, the so-called Rump Parliament set up a special legal body, the High Court of Justice, to try the king for high treason in the name of the people of England. On the 19th of January 1649, Charles was brought from Windsor to St. James's Palace and then lodged at Sir Robert Cotton's house in Westminster, so he could be more easily guarded. On the 20th of January, at Westminster Hall, the court opened. The sergeant-at-arms rode in with the mace, trumpeters sounded. It was a ceremony of public gravity. Why this mattered? It was a stage show of power, the king being tried before a court, empowered in the name of the people. The very concept challenged the idea that the monarch was above the law. Instead, here, the king was subject to the law. That shift would echo far beyond 17th century Britain. The trial itself, authority, defiance, and judgment. When the trial began, Charles refused to plead. His first question, "By what lawful authority am I here?" He argued that as king, he could not be tried by a court constituted by his subjects. The commissioners replied that they sat in the name of the people of England. This confrontation encapsulates the broader struggle. King asserting divine right versus Parliament, and army asserting popular sovereignty and accountability. The charges. The charges read against Charles accused him of a wicked design to erect and uphold in himself an unlimited and tyrannical power to rule according to his will, and to overthrow the rights and liberties of the people more concretely, that he traitorously and maliciously levied war against the realm. The court met over several days. Witnesses were heard, deliberations held. On 24th January, the court privately heard evidence. On 26th January, the sentence was agreed. On 27th January, the judgment was proclaimed, Charles guilty. The commissioners found him guilty unanimously, or near unanimously, and sentenced him to death. Why this matters? Here we see a radical moment. A court formed by Parliament and army judged a king guilty of treason. Treason against the people. That flips the usual paradigm. It is no longer simply the king's prerogative. The people, through their institutions, claim a right to hold a monarch accountable. Execution and aftermath. A new era begins. On the 30th of January 1649, Charles I was executed outside the banqueting house in Whitehall. His body was buried, and overnight the system changed. What followed? The monarchy and the House of Lords were abolished. The Commonwealth of England was declared, moving Britain temporarily away from monarchy. The period known as the Interregnum, 1649 to 1660, ensued, a republican experiment in Britain. Many of the commissioners, the regicides, faced retribution after the monarchy was restored in 1660. Why this matters? The execution of a king was shocking across Europe. It challenged the idea of the monarch as inviolable, and in Britain, it helped shift the political culture. The idea that even the highest person in the land could be subject to law and judgment. For later generations, including in Britain and in its colonies and overseas, this event helped shape constitutional thinking. Sovereignty resting, at least in part, with the people and their representatives rather than simply the monarch. By putting a king on trial, Britain gave a powerful example of accountability of power. If the monarch could be tried, then the principle arises, no one is above the law. That idea resonates in modern constitutions and human rights notions worldwide. The trial symbolized a move from absolute monarchy towards governance that recognized the role of Parliament, of the people, and of law. Over time, Britain developed a constitutional monarchy, a parliamentary system. And while the trial itself did not instantly bring that about, it was a key moment in the shift. See inspiration and caution. The trial also provided a cautionary tale. How far to go in the challenge of power, how unstable such moments can be. The interregnum proved difficult. The Restoration came, and the monarchy survived, albeit in a modified form. But the idea that power could be challenged and held to account had been permanently introduced. Even in the American colonies, the idea that a ruler could be tried and held accountable had echoes. Later revolutions and constitutional movements would draw from these ideas. The British example contributed to the broader shift in Western political thought, from rule by divine right to rule by law and popular representation. In January 1649, in Westminster Hall, a king knelt before a court, convened in the name of the people, questioned their authority, and faced judgment. The world watched. A crown fell, and a new notion rose, that sovereignty ultimately lies with the people, and power should answer to law. Whether you view the trial of Charles I as justice, revenge, or revolution, or perhaps all three, there is no denying its place in history. Britain gave this world a profound gift, the concept that even a king is not beyond the reach of the people's law.